Well, there was far less gloom and doom than we thought yesterday, unless you were in southeastern New England and maybe eastern portions of Long Island. But the sun managed to come out in many areas and actually warm things up well into the 70s in some places in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. We are also seeing some severe weather tonight in parts of eastern Minnesota into Wisconsin and Iowa. We'll be taking a look at that. We'll look at the weekend, the long range, and see what adventures the models take us with regards to the tropics. And that's all coming up tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And if you'd like to support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, you can do so by shopping the referral link to Amazon. Just use the search bar, find whatever your stuff is, buy it, and Amazon will throw us back a little bit of coin for sending you there. It's an easy way to support this channel and this podcast, and it doesn't really cost you anything. So we really do appreciate those of you who use the Amazon referral link. So it wasn't as gloomy and doomy today because that offshore low wound up sliding out an extra, I don't know, 50 miles, 75 miles further to the east. And that allowed a little bit of dry air to come down from eastern Canada on a north-northeast wind. I mean, overall, it really wasn't a bad day.
6 o'clock this morning, I was taking Mr. Sweeney out for a very early walk, and I'm stepping outside, and I'm saying, what is this? Because I had said last night, the forecast for last night through much of the day today, mostly cloudy, and here the sky was quite clear. I was able to get a view of the almost full moon setting in the west, calling it a night, and high overhead almost was Jupiter shining brightly, and I said, well, so much for the mostly cloudy day today. I knew that we were going to have a lot of sunshine, and also we were going to have warmer temperatures. Joe, I didn't get what the high was today here at our Putnam Valley retreat, but
I just saw New York City temperature right now is 81.
Well, it was 82 at about, I don't know, 12 o'clock this afternoon, so it may have gotten even higher than that here. But what are you going to say? It's sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So you're right. It was a lot less gloomier and doomier than what we were proclaiming just 24 hours ago. Yes, Tom Contino, what happened to the gloom and doom that was talked about yesterday? We know. It went away. Actually, in a few moments, I'm going to show you the radar. I'll show you where the gloom and doom was. It really wasn't all that far away from here, over southeastern New England. Almost got as far west as eastern Long Island, but not anything to write home about. Just a decent day here in New York.
It should not escape anyone here that we, do admit our errors.
Yes, we do.
Okay, it's not like we're pretending like it didn't happen. Okay, but it is a dirtyish high, and the air is not all that cool overhead. And the wind was actually more north-northeast than anything else, which is more of a land wind anyway. But hey, it turned out okay. So, don't complain. Enjoy it.
Yeah, it's going to be abnormally mild for a late September night. Normally, it should be down near 50 for a low temperature here in the Hudson Valley. We're going to be, Joe, somewhere like 60 to 65. That'll be our low temperature for tonight here in the Hudson Valley.
It's a maritime high, and the ocean water temperatures are warm, so it's hard for it to cool off at night in that sort of a setup. And as far as the next couple of days, it's sort of tricky because we're in one of these air masses where you get low clouds and maybe some fog develops overnight in some places, and then the sun will try to cut through it. I still think that Saturday may be more of a problem with clouds because of the fact that you're going to have this system that Joe's got the radar up, and he's going to get to this in a second. But you're going to have the system offshore to our southeast, which is something else that's dropping down from eastern Canada that's dropping straight southward. That's probably going to bring some showers to upstate New York and then Pennsylvania, and all that stuff seems to be moving southward. So we're going to be sort of in between those two things. And I'm thinking maybe there'll probably be more clouds than anything else. but Sunday probably should turn out to be okay.
I agree with you. I think we're going to see more in the way of cloud cover, even though the conditional, when you look on the tabular forecasts of the GFS and the and the NAM, and when I say conditional, they give the sky conditions every 3 hours or so. And I saw for tomorrow, excuse me, I saw for Saturday a lot of clear or scattered, and I really didn't think that was going to be the case. I think we're going to see a lot more in the way of cloud cover here on Saturday. Sunday, I think that we will see the sun. Not completely, not mostly sunny, but we will eventually see the sun, especially in the afternoon. But there'll still be overall more clouds and sun. If you want a nice bright day, a nice sunny day, of course, wait until after the weekend, because it looks like Monday will be that kind of a day with mainly sunny skies.
Yeah,
But
I would
dry.
sort yeah, but dry. I would sort of describe both days, cloudy. Sunday, I would probably describe as, cloudy to partly sunny, where, it's maybe starts off with clouds, particularly along the coast till the maritime air. It's just probably a leftover thin deck of clouds, low clouds that the sun will be able to cut through at some point. And it does look like we're going to get a cold front in the middle part of next week. And that's going to be important because it does uh, set up the atmosphere for later next week with whatever develops in the Gulf of Mexico or in the Northwest Caribbean, which we will get to momentarily. But it is raining in southeastern New England, and Joe's got a loaded radar there. Looks like some of the rain that's offshore east of Boston may eventually, try to back westward.
Well, you can see, those of you who have it on your screen right now, that Boston and much of southeastern New England, including Cape Cod and the islands, Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, were stuck today with not only a lot of cloud cover. Now, you talk about your gloom and doom. This is your gloom and doom. A lot of places out east of here ended up with clouds, with a steady rain, and in some cases, you can see where the yellows are over portions of Cape Cod and also on the islands. They were getting some pretty good rain there today. And as Joe has alluded to, some of this activity is trying to back in from the west, from the east, I should say, and head westward. And I think Block Island saw a couple of brief showers today. It didn't quite make it to eastern Long Island, and that's the way it's been. Joe, it's amazing. Here in the immediate New York area in the Lower Hudson Valley, we have had now, today was day 11 consecutive days of no precipitation. And if you want to go back to the beginning of the month, we've had so far, we're up to the 19th of September. Only 2 days out of the first 19 in September have had any measurable precipitation. I can top that. You go back to August 27th. That was 23 days ago. And we've had a grand total of 3 days with precipitation. In fact, in those 3 days, the grand total amount of rainfall has been something like, anywhere from 5 to maybe 6/10 of an inch. I mean, that's not a whole heck of a lot. And again, more often than not, again, we're in the day 11 here. And guess what? We're going to have day 12 tomorrow, 13 on Saturday, and 14 on Sunday, and 15 on Monday. We're going to go at least until Monday without seeing any precipitation. And in fact, it looks like we may not get any precip in the tri-state area, the immediate tri-state area, until either later Tuesday or Wednesday of next week with that front that you mentioned, Joe. But meantime, there's the map showing, or there's the radar that's showing how much rain fell over southeastern New England today. And now let's move away, because we were talking about this off air, that over the northern plains, they do have some noteworthy precipitation. Now, this is This is Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and you can see that there's one little speck here, one little dot at the beginning of the loop of some heavy thunderstorm, very localized thunderstorm activity. So let's move out of Sioux Falls and go a little ways more to the east. Let's go to Minneapolis, and you can see that over southernmost sections of Minnesota, moving into Wisconsin, there's some rather potent showers and thunderstorms. And did you say, Joe, that SPC has put this zone in the potential for severe weather? It certainly looks like these are.
Indeed, it has. In fact, I'm just going to just switch. I'll switch back to you in a second. But here's what the Storm Prediction Center has for tonight, and of course they've got slight risk in a north-south oriented line, if you want to call it a line. Eastern Minnesota, western Wisconsin, Iowa, northwest Missouri, eastern Kansas. And in the northern part of this, uh, eastern Minnesota and northern Iowa at a 5% tornado risk. 2% goes all the way down to northwest Missouri and also into northeast Kansas. And at the moment, we've got two severe thunderstorm watches and one tornado watch. A tornado watch for the northeastern half of the northeastern quarter of Minnesota. Okay. And in the southeastern quarter is a severe thunderstorm watch. Then you got a gap. And then there's another severe thunderstorm watch in southeast Kansas and in a very small portion of northeastern Oklahoma. So that's where our severe weather is tonight, Mr. Rayo. So I'll bring you back and you can dance around the radars as you have been doing oh so eloquently.
Well, we this is the view again from Minneapolis or Chanhassen. Never heard of that. Any case, we go a little bit further to the east. Let's go to let's go to La Crosse, and you can see in the southeastern part of Minnesota on the La Crosse radar, moving into Wisconsin and moving just to the north of Wisconsin, just to the north of La Crosse, we have again some heavy duty shower and thunderstorm activity rolling through. And that's not the only area. We've seen Minnesota, we've seen Wisconsin. Why don't we just take a quickie look here at Des Moines? Well, the Des Moines radar is basically clear for the most part, except for the extreme northern section, northern zone. And in fact, it looks like there was some kind of a line of convection, a line of heavy showers and storms that was trying to develop just north of Des Moines that actually reached into the southernmost areas of Minnesota. But that is the active part of the radar tonight. I'm going to look for one more shot here of Duluth, Minnesota, northern Minnesota, showing some, again, rather potent showers and storms moving into the Arrowhead, as it's known, of Minnesota. That's the area immediately adjacent to Lake Superior. And indeed, they have some rather potent storms occurring up in this zone as well as areas. Well, it almost looks like, again, this line is in the developmental stage. And actually, apparently, a couple of storms, a couple of showers actually made it all the way into Duluth, where the radar is emanating. Any other place you'd like to go, Joe? Or
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I'm going to bring up the wide radar view here so we can take a look at uh, the severe thunderstorm warning. There's actually about half a dozen severe thunderstorm warnings that are up from northeastern Ohio, southeast Minnesota, western Wisconsin. There's also a couple of tornado warnings that have been issued. One is in the Arrowhead, as you mentioned. So very, very busy night there. And then to the south, there's that gap from the southern half of Iowa until you get into southeastern Kansas and southwest Missouri. And here we have also, looks like, well, three severe thunderstorm warnings that have been issued in this little complex that is moving out toward the east. Meanwhile, in the mid-Atlantic states, we have some scattered showers in western Virginia and in northwestern North Carolina. Also, a few blips in South Carolina and in southeastern North Carolina. I had a rain shower here not too long ago, maybe about an hour or so ago. But most of the radars across the Gulf states are very quiet. Looks like there's some heavy rain in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, a thunderstorm going on there. And we've got some scattered activity in Nevada and in California in the Sierra Nevadas. But much of the West, except for with that exception, much of the West is very, very quiet. Now, Just moving along with the Storm Prediction Center for tomorrow, just two small areas of marginal risk. One that is in northwest Indiana, northeastern Illinois, another one in south central and southwest Kansas, and also in the Oklahoma Panhandle. Otherwise, on the East Coast from Maine down to North Florida, nothing. West across the Gulf states, nothing. The peninsula of Florida under general thunderstorms, extreme South Texas under general thunderstorms, and parts of the Southwest into Southern California under a chance for some scattered thunderstorms. And as we move on to day three, we've got now this is Friday into, I'm sorry, this is Saturday into Sunday. And we mentioned that there is something there's a trough that's dropping southward from eastern Canada, from Ontario and Quebec province, that's going to move pretty much straight north to south. So SPC has indicated some general thunderstorms as far east as northwest New Jersey to about the Jersey coast. Also in western and southern New York. We do have a marginal risk in south central and southwestern Pennsylvania, extending into northeastern West Virginia and northwestern Virginia. Also, a marginal risk from southeast Nebraska and northeast Kansas northeastward into western Wisconsin, and a marginal risk covering much of eastern and northern New Mexico, southernmost Colorado, and northwest Texas. David Schwartz, thanks for hitting Super Chat tonight. Craig Allen, thanks for sharing that information. He underwent 5 hours of surgery to prepare what is that? A mitral? Is that how you pronounce it? A mitral heart valve?
I've never heard of that before.
No. So we wish him a speedy recovery, don't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is probably why, all of you who have been asking, why don't you bring Craig Allen on? And Craig had actually told us a while back that he was going to be away for some extended time, a medical issue. He didn't tell us what the medical issue was. Now we know, and now we understand, and we all hope that he comes through with flying colors and recovery. And I'm sure that once he is recovered, that we will be able to bring him on. And I know a lot of people will be looking forward to that.
All right. As I said, we wish him all the best. Here's the watches and warnings tonight. Again, another night where there really isn't a whole lot going on except for those severe thunderstorm watches in the yellow area up in Minnesota and northwest Wisconsin is the tornado watch. A few wind advisories in western North Dakota and parts of northeastern Montana. A couple of frost warnings in south central Colorado, and frost advisories there. And I think the purple there in the Sierra Nevadas, is that a freeze watch? Let me see if I can find the color. It's very close to the same color as a high surf advisory. I don't think it's that. Now, let me take a look here. Let me just punch this up. This blue is a winter weather advisory, Joe. Winter weather advisories up, and that includes Monmouth Lakes. I don't know if you've been to Monmouth Lakes, and by the way, we do have flood watches up further south and southwest toward coastal California, including Santa Maria and St. Louis Obispo. Those actually lie just outside of that, so it's in the mountains to the west of both those places. I've actually been to both of those places. And further south into California, talking about the threat for some strong thunderstorms in that area, which is why they have the flood watches up. And the winter weather advisory is for 2 to 5 inches of snow for elevations above 9,000 feet. Now, I wonder how many people live at that elevation.
Oh, well,
I mean, because I'm thinking it's sort of like your own personal winter weather advisory, because there can't be that many.
I can tell you that somebody I visited several years ago in Arizona, northwest Arizona, was about at that altitude. So there are people who are up there, so to speak, in terms of above sea level altitude, but not too many.
No, I would think not.
The road that I took the road that Renata and I took to get to that person's home, uh, it was 18 miles. It took us like almost an hour to get up there, and it was the roughest road. I mean, I was holding on to the steering wheel with bare knuckles. I guess if you're going to live that high up, don't expect a nice, smooth, interstate type highway.
No, they
To
all have, dirt roads and private roads like that.
Yep, yep.
Ken Musillo informing us that mitral valve prolapse. You get a leaky valve, and if it gets more severe, you get operated on, repair or replace with a cow valve or a pig valve, I believe. That's his was repaired. So yeah, they do that. It, and they, they do it. The recovery time is pretty quick. It's amazing what they can do um, with heart surgery these days, which, just even going back 10 years ago, what, with how they do it now and how did it then, and how they did it then almost looks barbaric compared to, how they do the stuff now. Here's the satellite loop tonight. You can see the clouds in southeastern New England. You can also see how it broke out. Much of upstate New York was mostly sunny today. So was Pennsylvania, into northern New Jersey. Back edge of the clouds and some of the lower clouds just east of eastern Long Island at the moment. Looks like they're trying to back westward a bit. We've got these scattered clouds in the southeast with those speckled showers on the radar, blow up of thunderstorms in southern Florida, which we showed you on the radar. You can see the blow ups, impressive blow-ups of cloud cover, the high cloud tops of the thunderstorms with the severe weather up in the western portions of the Great Lakes. And the upper trough with that is circulating just north of the Canadian border in North Dakota. And you've got some, patchy moisture in parts of Nevada and into the Sierra Nevadas here, and a little bit of moisture up in the Pacific Northwest. Now, as for rainfall over the next 7 days, now this takes us through next Thursday night. So it covers a cold front that's probably going to come on Wednesday with some rain. So right now, WPC has a half to three quarters there, less up in Maine and New England. It's also reflecting the rainfall that they're forecasting for southeastern New England, where you've got that 2-inch area kind of nosing into Cape Cod, into Nantucket and Hyannis. The rainfall amounts of up to a half an inch down into Virginia and North Carolina and eastern Tennessee. Then it drops off further as you head into Georgia, then picks up when you go down into southernmost Florida, and for a small portion of just offshore the Florida Panhandle and offshore southern Alabama, southern Mississippi, and southeast Louisiana. There's some heavy rains as the Gulf moisture starts loading up with the pattern that is setting up for over the weekend and into next week. Dry across the northern plains into much of the north, into much of the west, just some spotty precip in the southwest, and in the central plains to the middle Mississippi Valley. We have a large area of 1.5 to 2.5 inch rainfalls being forecast. So we mentioned this last night about what the models are going to be doing, because we've got many days to look at what's going on in the Caribbean. So here's a wide satellite loop. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. They have a Caribbean loop, but the Caribbean loop cuts off where you can't see the Northwest Caribbean. And the Gulf of Mexico loop doesn't go far enough south. So what we're watching is, right in here in this area where we're starting to see some convection blowing up to some extent. So the seedling of what's probably going to become a tropical depression or a tropical storm next week is there. And, this is all part of a gyre of moisture over Central America. So what winds up happening is, it spins around, and you get a piece that breaks off, and that gets into the Southwest Caribbean and starts to migrate northward. So we'll be watching that. Obviously, there's nothing there that's organized. Out in the Central Atlantic, and we're looking at a the area that's got the bigger clouds. That's more of a non-tropical system that's moving away to the northeast. But if you look to the west of that, you can still there's a little spinning rotation here. This is what's left of Tropical Storm Gordon, and it looks like convection's been increasing there this afternoon. So don't be too shocked if this winds up regenerating into a tropical storm again as it eventually gets kicked along to the north and northeast. And, maybe it goes to the Azores, maybe it goes to Portugal. I'm not really sure, but it's not obviously not an issue. The rest of the tropical Atlantic, though, is very quiet. There's not a whole lot going on there. So the focus of attention is going to be in the Western Caribbean and especially in the Northwest Caribbean early next week as that particular system gets there. And we've got let's see what the latest outlooks say. They had 40%, and they still have a 40% chance of tropical cyclone formation. Gradual development of this system is possible early next week, and a tropical depression could form as the system moves slowly north or northwest over the Northwest Caribbean Sea and into the southern Gulf of Mexico through the middle part of next week. And the other two, the lemons that you see, one of them is what's left of Gordon, and they mentioned that okay, so let me correct something. The Gordon one is the one that was the bigger system that's moving away to the northeast, and they have a 30% chance. The smaller one is a new system that has become a little more concentrated in terms of the thunderstorm activity, and they say environmental conditions appear only marginally conducive, but some development is possible while it meanders over the open waters. 20% over the next 48 hours, and a 30% chance going forward. Now, the upper air is going to be changing over the next week to 10 days. We're going to lose the block that's in eastern Canada, and that's going to start to allow weather systems to short waves to start moving along in the flow. And you'll notice that there's a fairly deep shortwave that drops down into the western lakes and moves into the northeast for the middle part of next week. It's also picking up on the development of something in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, it the way this model has been acting, it's hard to know, how many, what's real and what's not with these short waves. So each run keeps doing something different. And again, we're talking here, we're still a good week away. I mean, this is next Thursday when there's a trough in the Ohio Valley, and the system on this particular run goes over Florida and then moves up the East Coast just offshore. But it's all going to depend on the timing of any of these short waves that are dropping down into the northern stream and how strong they are, and whether they drop in along 80 or 85 degrees west or not. The argument in some of the prior runs has been that there'd be two shortwave troughs, and it would miss one and get caught by the other, or sometimes the first one would get it and the second one wouldn't do anything. But this is the latest model fantasy here with the system developing it into a hurricane in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, taking it off over Florida, moving it off the southeast coast, and then slingshotting it up uh, almost like a snowstorm in the wintertime, passing very close to the benchmark and near Cape Cod by the time we get to a week from Saturday. So again, we're talking 9 days from now. There's still a lot that can how this plays out. And Joe, the other thing is, we're still all the global models have something. The European wants to have it in the Western Gulf. The Icon wants to have it in the Central Gulf, and then there's the Canadian, which I had to laugh at because the Canadian takes it into the Central Gulf of Mexico, moves it inland. I can't read what the pressure is there. It looks like about a 970-ish or high 960s into southwest Louisiana, and it takes the low up into Kansas and toward Minnesota. So there you
Saw that.
have it.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Well, they're all on the same. They're all on the same page in red flagging that something around the 28th, 29th, 30th of September is going to be in the Gulf of Mexico. The only question is where exactly is it going to be, and where's it going to go? And that's something that we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, we're talking about September 28th, 29th. I mean, it's only September 19th, so that's almost 10 days away. A lot can happen in 10 days.
Right. And the part we're probably fairly sure on is that something is going to form. in the Northwest Caribbean and get into the Gulf of Mexico. Where in the Gulf of Mexico, we don't know. Also, it's kind of funny when you look at these runs. You know, yesterday it looked like it was starting to spin up all this stuff in the major development region in the tropical Atlantic. It's got some weak systems moving across on the 12Z run. It has something that comes out and doesn't really, starts to develop when it gets west of 50 and then goes straight west, just north of the northern Leeward Islands, just north of Puerto Rico, just north of the Dominican Republic, and right over Cuba. And this would be at the end of the forecast period. So that you got the first thing, which the earlier GFS took over Florida off the southeast coast, and it was a little bit further east than the 18Z. And but it's got another hurricane that, for 2 weeks from now. And of course, on the 18Z run, you can't even find it. So, again, this is the mystery of the lives that we live as forecasters. But again, we do know that something's going to probably come out of the Northwest Caribbean, and then next week we'll probably be able to figure out just exactly where it's going.
Well, I agree. I agree on that. I wanted to just read you. I'm gonna. This is my introduction for those of you who will not be there. We were having the Tri-State Weather Conference on Saturday morning at Western Connecticut State University, and you're still open to go if you care to. There's still time to register. It's only $25, but they have a lot of big names there from the National Weather Service of both New York and also Boston, and also the Eastern Region National Weather Service, and even a few notable media people like Gil Simmons from formerly of News 12 Connecticut, who's now working at WTNH in New Haven. But I wanted to read, Joe, that this is from the weather book that was written by Eric Sloan, who was quite popular in terms of weather back in the 50s. In fact, those of you old timers may remember at the old Hayden Planetarium, they had these marvelous weather dioramas showing you the interior of a hurricane and how high pressure works and low pressure and thunderstorm development or whatever. They were all designed by this gentleman, Eric Sloan. And in his book, Eric Sloan's weather book, and again, I'm going to lead with this on Saturday morning. He wrote, many meteorologists, I feel sure, began their life work as sensitive children who responded to the thrill of clouds and wind, and who were awed by thunder and lightning. But the meteorologist is a slave to the barrage of weather map material and mathematical data that bombards him or her all over the world and keeps him from looking out the window of the sky. On the other hand, a person with a weather eye wears his badge of wisdom gracefully. He has a ready alertness to cloud changes, or has the calm assurance that tonight's rain will give way to a week of good weather. They have the gift of the upward glance, and their sky philosophy makes them a richer person. I love people who can write like that. I certainly couldn't write like that, but that's a good that gives you a good aspect of what it is like to be a meteorologist, a forecaster. The ironic thing is that you know you got started looking up at the sky, but then when you're finally into the game, they stick you in a room with no
Right, with
windows.
no windows. And well, that was the
Yeah,
one advantage I had at PI at Pix was I did have a big window to look out.
really,
Yeah,
that's great.
but I looked out at 42nd Street, and all I could see is the big buildings on the other side of the street. So it was not, I had to sort of find the right angle to be able to look up, up in the sky. So, yeah, but I did have a window, and it was great when it would snow because I had a window. I could see the street lights. I could, how we all, you know, uh, all snow weenies know how to look at street lights and try to make the distinction between snowflakes and dust.
Yes.
All right, let's do this. Let's play Briller Jeopardy, the last one of the week, and we'll be doing. actors and their um, highest grossing movies that they were in. Now, they may not have necessarily had the lead roles in those movies. So the first one tonight is John Travolta.
Oh, well, right off the bat, I would say Greece, but
Oh, ring the bell, Joe, for yourself.
it really?
It's Grease.
Oh.
Tom Contino, Christina Pedia, Chuck Cardillo, Maggie P. all got Grease too. Eddie Murphy.
Would that be Trading Places? Or
Uh,
it might have been the movie that came after Trading Places. I forgot the name of the movie.
well, we could ring the bell for Tom Contino because he got it. Beverly Hills Cop.
Lovely. And Tom, to answer your question, no, my home office, as you can see, my home office does not have a window. I can, however, look this way and see out the sliding glass doors of the basement here and see out, somewhat. And if I had to see something, I would just get up and quickly run over, and I could immediately see what's going on outside.
Right. Now, this one is an example of someone who is famous, but the movie that he's in as a supporting actor. Okay, so this is Robert Redford. And I'll just give everybody a hint. It's a relatively recent movie. It's not one of the movies that, it's not The Sting. It's you know, it's it's this movie. And it's not The Natural. That's I couldn't think of it. Thank you, Christina Pedi. I was trying to think of that. And
The Natural came
couldn't.
out not recently. The Natural was like 40 years ago,
Right.
believe it.
But this movie was, this particular movie was, maybe in I don't know, maybe in the last 10 years, last 20 years.
Oh, I know what it is.
And,
Robert Redford. It
and
it
not
was it,
not Captain America, Rich Rothmansky, but you're kind of in the genre.
How about the biography of Chuck Scarborough?
Mm, God. Is he still with us?
Chuck Scarborough?
Yeah.
He is still out there, Joe. He is
Oh,
still doing.
I'm sorry. I was thinking of Jack Cafferty.
No, Jack Cafferty is. I don't know if he's still with us. He's not doing any news anymore in
Right.
New York. I mean, I know that he was at one time. He was at Channel 11.
I was there when I did get to work with him.
Was that what it did during the independent network news days, or?
No, this was afterward. This was afterward. Christina Pedia notes, but not indecent proposal, nor Tom Contino was it out of Africa. Um, Not indecent proposal. Um, think those superhero movies. There we go. Maggie P got it. Avengers Endgame. That's correct. Maggie P. Ring the bell for Maggie P.
Maggie P, congratulations. Now I'd like to know what superhero did he play?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't. I've never seen it, nor will I see it.
Oh, okay.
Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington.
I mm. The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
No. And by the way, that falls under the category of when the original is a good movie, don't remake it. Okay, don't remake it. You should not. They should not have. Oh, they remade the Manchurian Candidate, and it's like, no, absolutely not. You do not. That's a classic. You do not remake the Manchurian Candidate. But we'll leave it at that. Not Malcolm X, not Unstoppable, not Philadelphia Story. Maggie P gets it again. Boy, she's on a hot streak tonight, Joe. American Gangster.
All right. Congratulations for Maggie
And
P.
and the last one is, and I think you should be able to get this one, Joe. Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds.
Yes.
Was that one of the movies with Jackie Gleason?
Yes, keep going.
Uh, well, I'm trying to remember the name. Um, oh, damn. And here's the irony. I actually went to one of those movies. It wasn't the first
Right.
one, but one of the sequels.
Well, Northern Grace has one word in the title. Um,
Oh,
Smokey
Smokey and the Bandit.
Smokey and the Bandit. Yes, Mike Waterhouse got that. Mike Waterhouse Banzai got that. Vincent Croce, Deliverance, no, but I will tell you that a lot of the scenes from Deliverance were actually filmed not very far from me. Those waterfalls that are in that movie, that's North Georgia, okay? And it's gorgeous. I haven't gone there yet. Tallulah Falls, I believe, is one of the places where they filmed. But all of that was shot here most of that movie was shot here in North Georgia. So
And I'll tell you something about
it's a
Smoke.
beautiful state up here. I will, you got my word on that.
Renata and I saw Smokey and the Bandit out in Long Island at a drive-in theater, Joe. At a drive-in.
Nice. Are there drive-ins anywhere anymore?
I don't think so. I don't
Yeah.
think so. You're from the same part of the Bronx as I am.
Well, we had
You've
the Whitestone drive-in,
right.
remember?
The
Yeah,
WB.
I snuck in a couple of times by hiding people, with my friends, and we'd hide them in the trunk. We got caught once.
If you went over the drawbridge, the Unionport drawbridge, as it was called, if you were coming from, let's say, uh, from heading toward Throg's Neck, and you went over that drawbridge, you can actually see for about 10 seconds, you can see what movie was playing on the screen.
Right, yes. That happened a few times. Um, I will just say for the youngins on here who don't know what a drive-in movie theater is, it's actually just think about it as a giant parking lot with a gigantic movie screen, and you'd park, and there would be these poles with speakers on them, and you'd put the speaker in your car, and you would watch the movie, and you would get the sound through the speaker.
And in
And
fact,
if you were there with the date, you didn't care what the movie was about because you just basically were there to do all sorts of dirty, disgusting things.
now Frank Scalera, you're saying, do you, if you remember the Whitestone Cinema, they're not there no more. So sad. So is that what replaced the
Yeah,
drive-in?
yeah. The
There's a multi
drive-in is just this big movie theater with like eight, whatever they have, 8 movies, 10 movies that you could pick from.
right. I know there was a
Yeah,
multi there after the drive-in went bye-bye.
yeah. Is it still there? The
Yeah, well, Frank
multiplex theater?
Scalera says Whitestone. I don't know if that's the same thing. Whitestone Cinema. They're not there no more. So sad. So I don't know. Maybe
Oh,
that's
okay.
the
So maybe it's gone. I
yeah.
mean, if they can open a Home Depot on Zariga Avenue, then where was it? That was on Zariga, but in that whole section there, by the river near Zariga Avenue was all this industrial stuff, and it was all always, half burned down. And I think they built a Home Depot there and a few other things. So they got that, but they don't. The Whitestone Drive-In is long gone. There was one on, I think there's one in Shirley on Long Island that might still be going.
Surely you jest.
No, Shirley, I know. So
If
anyhow,
you ever watch if you watch the Flintstones, and who has not watched the Flintstones, the opening and the ending of the Flintstones shows them in the opening driving into a drive-in, and then in the end driving out of a drive-in. And
right.
I here's a question, not Briller Jeopardy question, but it's a trivia question. How many of you know you've seen that probably hundreds, if not thousands, of times in your life? So I want to know, Joe, what is playing at that drive-in that Fred and Wilma and Barney and Betty and even the kids, they drive into that drive, and Dino too. They
I
go into that drive-in movie theater, and what's playing? What's the movie that's playing
I
there?
don't remember.
And it's tonight only, by the way.
Right.
They it's, you don't know? Anybody
No.
know what movie is playing? You know what? I use that. This goes back. back to the 80s when I was on a radio station in Rochester, New York, WHAM, and they used to have trivia. And the guy who did the afternoon drive, he said, "Damn, I can't think of a good trivia question." And I said, "How about this one?" And I said, "What's playing at the drive-in that the Flintstones go into and come out of during each show?" And, you see it right there on a giant placard, the name of the movie.
I don't remember it. What is the name of the movie?
Not Jake Benny. It's Jack Benny, Hurricane Reuben Fairchild. Not Jake Benny, Jack Benny. You don't remember what's playing at the drive-in?
No, I don't remember, Joe. What movie is playing at the drive-in?
The Monster.
Oh, okay.
And if you don't believe me, if you have Me TV, you can see it on Sunday, like 10:30. They run an hour's worth of Flintstones, or even in the morning. I think they have the Flintstones at like 6:30 a.m. And you can see driving into the drive-in theater, it's the Monster tonight only. And then they drive out, and then they stop at a drive-in restaurant, and Fred orders a gigantic, I don't know what it is, Brontosaurus rib.
They're ribs, and it tilts the whole car falls over to one side. Yes.
Exactly.
All right, David Schwartz, thank you for hitting Super Chat tonight. Ken Musillo, thank you for hitting Super Chat tonight. And everybody have a great weekend. You're lucky enough to start it tomorrow on Friday. Good for you. We'll be back Sunday night at 7:35 p.m. All right, Joe, have a good weekend and have fun at WestCon. Make sure you do a shameless self-promotion for the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast.
Well, I most definitely will do that, and it's already in the program. So, we may even have a few people who heard about us from the program that's going to occur on Saturday. And we're talking about the Flintstones. Since we're finishing off the week, let's all have a gay old time. Bottom.
Bye-bye.